Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to this session of ConsensusCON, Enabling Channel with Automated Demos. I'll be your presenter today. I am the Senior Product Manager here at Consensus. Excited to be with you. ConsensusCON is focused on helping our customers and future customers scale pre-sales by getting the most out of Consensus demo automation. Our presenter lineup today includes some of our top accounts as well as many industry experts. So if you haven't already been able to check out some of the other sessions, we're excited to have you here, and hopefully you can check out some of the sessions that are coming up. We're also happy to announce that in a few days, we'll be launching a new forum to continue to help build our user community and give you a space to communicate with one another, discuss best practices, and much more. We'll also be starting a monthly webinar series beginning in December to continue to provide resources for our user base. So keep an eye open for that. We'll make sure we send out heads up as soon as we have some of those scheduled and ready to go. We'll also have a QA at the end of the session after the presentation is finished. So if you do have any questions, make sure you put them in the Q&A session, and we'll make sure to address as many as we can, again, at the end of this presentation. Before we jump in and get started, I just want to do a little bit of house cleaning and make sure everyone's ready to go. I want to make sure everyone has access to their chat as well as to their hand raise functionality. So let's go ahead and get started by using chat. So if you can find that, if you want to type in what my background is, if you can tell what the background is from, just to make sure that chat's working. We also have Taylor Jeffrey, one of our account executives here, that'll be manning the chat. So if you have questions that come up or anything about the actual presentation or issues, make sure that you post those to chat, and Taylor can help you there. And then he'll also be running the Q&A at the end of the session today. Okay, great. I also want to see that everyone has their hand raising functionality working and ready to go. So let's go ahead, and if you have that hand raise, click on that, and we'll make sure that that's working for everybody. Perfect. Looks like I can see that up and running. So that is awesome. All right, so we're going to jump right in today. Again, we're talking about enabling channel with automated demos, specifically using your Consensus solution and how you can set that up and start to enable some of your channel partners, those resellers, and making sure you can enable them with the demos that you and your teams have worked hard to build and have ready. So just to run through a schedule of what we're going to cover today, we'll start off by talking about how you actually add resellers to your account. We'll talk about adding reseller users and some of the setup for that and some of the restrictions that they have. And then we'll jump into actually assigning them demos, how you can start to take advantage of the demos that you have and allow those resellers to use them. Then we'll jump into an actual reseller account or log in as a reseller so you can see exactly what a reseller can do, how it's slightly different from when you log into your own account and what they'll see and what they'll be able to experience inside of their own account in Consensus. And then we'll finish up by diving into the channel demolytics. This is really the coup de grace. This is the main goal of Consensus, is allowing you to get some really powerful analytics behind the demos that your resellers are using so that you can understand how effective they're being and really what resellers are standing out and taking advantage of the assets and materials that you're sending over for them to use. So to really dig into this, we're going to spend most of our time right inside of Consensus itself. So I'm just logged in inside of one of my accounts. Hopefully everyone can see that screen as we go forward. But the channel accelerator is right on the left-hand side over here in the navigation, which is where you're going to be able to interact or view a lot of the information about the channel partners or reseller groups that you have set up. But as you first look in this channel accelerator, it's going to be pretty empty until you actually set up some of these resellers and add some users in there and get everything ready for them to go. So we're going to start by showcasing how that's done inside of Consensus. And resellers are created by creating reseller groups inside of your group hierarchy inside of the account settings. So you can find that under this little gear icon in the upper right-hand corner, simply by clicking on Manage Users and Access. And the first tab you'll see are those groups. And to be able to create a reseller group, you'll simply click on Add New, and then you'll see the internal group. That's a group that would be used for any of your internal users, your sales reps, marketing reps, or anything like that. And this group functionality allows you to build a hierarchy of groups. It's not just flat one level, but you can actually build out the structure of either how your internal groups or maybe how your reseller groups are set up. For example, for those of you here on this call that happen to work directly with different reseller groups or channel partners, how many of you have a distributor set up where that first contact is a distributor and then underneath them are additional resellers that then sell the product? If you have that type of situation, go ahead and raise your hand just so we can see how many of you have that type of setup. Perfect. I see a few of you that work with that type of distributor setup. How many of you work more with direct channel partners where the direct reseller that you're working with is the one that is selling the product? Go ahead and raise your hand if you're working in that type of situation. Okay, great. Looks like we have a pretty good mix here, about 50-50 on the responses. So I want to showcase how you can set up both of those situations right inside of your group hierarchy here. And if any of you have jumped in and set up your own group hierarchy, this is going to work really similarly to how you would set up any of your internal groups and how that structure works internally. Inside of this account, I've already set up a quick little example of how it can work. You can see here, I am in the division level. This is the very first level underneath your account group. So the account group being whatever that account name is in the upper right-hand corner. And then underneath that is going to be the division group level. Then underneath your division group level, you can set up different groups. You can see in this example, I've got several internal as well as several reseller groups set up. So for those that work with the distributors, an example here would be this distributor ABC, let's call them. Underneath distributor ABC, you can see that I've set up 3 different department level groups. And you can see that in total, there are 5 group users in this distributor ABC group with a total of 20 users within this distributor A group and all of its subgroups. If I jump into the departments, this is where you can now see for the division level, you can see which groups are set underneath distributor ABC. So you can see that reseller ABC, reseller Co, and reseller XYZ are all built underneath this hierarchy that's set up for this distributor ABC. This is a really powerful way to set up your distributors because as you're jumping in and as we jump into the channel accelerator to look at the channel demolytics later, you'll see how you'll have the ability to filter your views by a specific group and its subgroups. So if you wanted to see all of the results from what the distributor ABC groups have done with your demos, you can easily do that if you've set them up within different reseller groups. This also distinguishes those reseller groups with the ability to customize the demos that you give them access to. And we'll jump into that a little bit later as well. But you would simply set them up by adding a new department here and clicking that reseller group. Or if you already have that division built out, let's say for distributor ABC, and you want to add a subgroup, that reseller that lives underneath that distributor, you can come over here on this more actions and click on create reseller subgroup. And then you'll have the ability to create that reseller group underneath them. Now, one caveat is as you create a reseller group, underneath that group, you can only have additional reseller groups. We can't build a hierarchy that has reseller groups and then internal groups underneath them, as that wouldn't be a very typical or traditional setup for an organization. So as you create that reseller group, any group created underneath them will also be a reseller group as well. And that's what this little notification is showing inside of here. Now, what I want to do is click into one of these groups to show you how this particular group or how this group can be set up. Again, if you were more that direct reseller channel where you don't have the distributor level that you're dealing with as well, you can also just set up a direct reseller as a reseller group as well. In this example, meta reseller, I don't have any departments or teams or any subgroups underneath this meta reseller. They're simply just one of my resellers that I work with directly with no distributor involved in that type of relationship. And you can see I have total of 6 users in there in this group. And since there's no subgroups, of course, that's the same amount of total users as well. But let's jump into one of these. Let's do distributor ABC, for example, and click on this little edit icon. This is going to be similar to what the page looks like when you're creating them, where you're able to set up what their name is. You can also add a description just for internal use, so you can jump back in and see how this relationship is built or whatever type of internal information you may want to have inside of that reseller's description. One of the things you can do is set up a reseller group manager. This acts somewhat like a mini admin, if you will, for this particular reseller group and any subgroups underneath it. So in this example, I've set up Chuck Berry, and you can set up any user inside of your account that is an internal group user. So any user that exists within an internal group as an internal group user can be set as a reseller group manager. So this allows you to have the situation where maybe your reseller group manager, or sometimes they're known as partner account managers, or however you happen to label them in your organization. Sometimes those partner account managers have another day job in your organization, if you will. Maybe they're also an account executive. Maybe they're also a client success manager for a handful of accounts. This allows you to have, in this example, Chuck Berry can be in one group inside of an internal group in your hierarchy. Maybe he's part of a different sales group as a sales team doing some of his work over there. He can also be associated with this reseller group as the reseller group manager. This is going to give him some special permissions for this reseller group and any of its subgroups. Essentially, he'll be able to work with anyone inside of this group or its subgroups to help them be able to troubleshoot, to support login as any of the users, to be able to update any users' access for what they can do inside of this particular reseller group, as well as maybe update their profile information or anything like that to really help make sure that you have a resource that's internal to your organization that can help drive the distributor or the reseller's usage of the consensus demo that you've given to them. After that, you then have the group owner. So a group owner can be anyone that is a group member of this particular group. And the group owner is kind of a sub-admin, if you will, of the reseller group manager. The group owner also has some special permissions that are given to him to be able to help drive things for the group members inside of his reseller group. So in this case, Jim Davis is the group owner, and he can help Anthony and Aiden and Amelia and Jim Davis jump in and view their analytics, help them by support logging in and being able to see exactly what they're seeing, and really help drive things as that internal source for that reseller or that reseller advocate on the inside of the reseller's organization to be able to drive that communication with that internal reseller as well. So you have both your own organization's internal representative, like that partner account manager that can be set up as that reseller group manager to be able to control things from that internal perspective for that reseller. And then you have your actual reseller advocate that can be set up as a group owner to be able to help drive things there. Now, both of those different elements are optional. If you don't have that partner account manager, or there's no one in that reseller group that makes sense to have set as a group owner, then that's okay. You can still set them up as a group with just basic group members inside of that group, and they'll still be able to run everything the way that they would need to. You would just potentially use a group owner of a higher group, or maybe an admin inside of your account that would still have the same type of access that any group reseller group manager or any group owner would have. So hopefully that showcases how you can set a few things up in the group to be able to align the responsibilities in a way that allow some of your internal reps to really help drive the usage of the consensus demos and help some of that with some of the admin aspects of having them get set up. After that, you then have your demo access. So there are two opportunities where you can assign demos for a reseller group. You can do that here right inside of the reseller group. You would simply drop down and select any demos you have in your account that you'd want to be able to add. Let's say I want to send this advanced demo here, and I can continue to add additional demos. Let's say I want to also have this North America demo, and then these are the demos that I want within the account. As soon as I save this, these users inside of this group will have direct access to be able to utilize those demos. Now, in order to utilize the demos, there are some unique things that they can do to personalize them as a reseller or as their own unique reseller group, if you will. And we're going to jump into that in just a little bit. But to finish up this section of setting up this reseller group, this is essentially all you would do. Now you have these users set up, you have your groups set up, you have everything in place for what you need to do. And now you can save this and make sure that that group is built out the way that you want to have them be able to access, and with the type of group owners and admins that you want to have available to help drive that. Now, for those users that are inside of a reseller group, anyone that is assigned to a reseller group will automatically have restrictions placed on their permissions, because as a reseller, a user inside of your account, we want to ensure that they don't have more access than what they really need to in order to perform the activities available to those reseller groups through the channel accelerator. So if I jump into the users, and then I'm just going to filter by a specific group. Let's say I'm going to filter by reseller ABC, which we know is one of the resellers underneath the distributor ABC reseller group. You can see here that all of these users are set up as marketing or sales lead. Those are the only roles that are available for a reseller user. You can't set a reseller user up as an admin or give them any additional special permissions, because as a reseller user, we're trying to ensure that they can't do anything in your account outside of what we enable those channel accelerator users to be able to do. And even those sales lead users are limited in terms of what they can do with the demos that you give them access to, along with those marketing users. If you're inside of your managed demos and you want to be able to give access to a reseller group right from inside of here, let's say you're creating a brand new demo. Let's just create a single video demo here. Let's say I want to create a demo and I want to have this called the product A demo. Not only can you give access to your reseller groups right inside of the manage groups page, but inside of the demo wizard, you can also come down here and then you can select those reseller groups as well to be able to give access to. So let's say I want this to be given access to distributor A. I can add them to this access list. And then from there, distributor A will have access to that group. I'm sorry, that group will have access to that demo. And then I can continue to give access to those groups. One of the things to be aware of is that reseller users cannot be given individual access to a demo. Reseller users that are in a reseller group are only granted access to a demo by their group access. So if you're looking in the user dropdown for a specific reseller and you're wondering why you can't find them, it's because resellers have that type of limitation where you can give them access to a demo, but only by giving that access to that specific reseller group. So let's say I wanted to give this to reseller ABC. I would add them here and then add them to this list. Now both distributor ABC and reseller ABC will have access to this demo inside of their account when they log in. So now let's take a look at what a reseller would actually see when they log into your account. Obviously, if you're an admin or if you are some sort of team lead or demo creator, you have full permissions to see the demos inside of your account as an admin. For a reseller user that logs in, they will be limited not only to what they can see, but what they can actually do with demos. So think similarly to like if you have sales users inside of your accounts, those sales users can jump in and they can preview and they can use the demo maybe to create a demo board with, but those users wouldn't be able to edit those demos they have access to simply because they don't have permissions. Well, resellers are going to work in a similar fashion where those types of reseller group users are going to be limited in terms of what they can do with the demos that you give them access to. So in order to see exactly what that's going to look like, I'm going to support login as one of our reseller group users. So let's jump into, let's say, reseller ABC, and I'm going to jump into the sales lead, into Bridget here, who's a sales lead inside of reseller ABC. Again, this is something that you as an admin or your reseller group owner can do, and it makes it a really powerful way for you to be able to help enable your distributors. This may be a new tool to them, or maybe they're not the most tech savvy distributor or whatever it may be. This gives you an opportunity to actually support login as them and be able to showcase exactly what that reseller user is going to see when they log in and help walk them through the system and make sure that they can set things up in a way that's going to allow them to take advantage of the functionality that they'll have inside of the system. So as I support login, now you'll be able to see, and you'll see the same thing as you support login as your reseller users. You'll always see this little button here to go back to that admin account. So this is what will allow you to jump right back into your account outside of the reseller user's account. If I drop down here, you can now see that I'm logged in as Bridget. So everything I see right now is as if I logged in directly as Bridget. So let's jump into that demo management. You can see right away, resellers don't have the ability to create demos. And the goal of that is because you are inviting them to take advantage of the demos that you've created for them and making sure that they are only using the assets that are relevant for you as their reseller, as opposed to having full access to a full account where they could also create demos of potentially competing or alternate products that they're selling as resellers as well. So resellers have that limitation where they simply can't create those types of demos. Inside of the managed demos, you can then see all of the demos that we've given access to for this reseller ABC. You can see here that there are a few that the one that we just created is this product A demo. And you can see that currently right now, they don't have full access to use it, which is why it has this little access icon on here, where for those others, you can see that they as a reseller and any users in there have access to be able to utilize that demo. Well, let's jump in and see why this is. If I edit this demo, one of the things, if you remember, is when we created this demo, we didn't actually give it any content. So the demo isn't actually ready for Limelight. That's something that you could then do after the fact and add the demo content to that demo for this product A demo. And any content that you add to it is controlled by you as well. Again, because they can't create demos, we also restrict them with a limited demo wizard. So this demo wizard, where most of the demo wizards have about 6 steps, this only has 2 steps. It simply allows them to adjust the styling of their demo as well as the contact information. That way, if they're using this demo for generating leads, or they're using it in order to send out to specific prospects by creating a demo board, this allows them to update the theme so it feels like one of their own assets they're sending out. However, all of the content inside of here is something that's completely controlled by you. So as a reseller, I can update the images, the logo, the theming, and all that fun stuff to make sure that it aligns with my organization as reseller ABC. And maybe instead of the blues, maybe my organization uses more reds. And so I want my call to action and I want my document bar to be more red so that it fits my look and feel as a reseller, because that's the branding that my reseller organization uses. Then after that, we also allow them to adjust some of the demo actions. That way, for a particular demo, they can determine how they want to be able to use the share prompt, which will enable their viewers to share the demo with others inside of the organization. If they want to be able to use the buyer board, as well as if they want to have any additional demo interactions. So this allows them to be able to add, let's say, a lead gate at some point within a public version of the demo. Or maybe they want to be able to add a contact button, or they want to add a button that simply has it drive to their website. They could adjust that to learn more, and they could determine that they want to link it to an external website. And let's say this should go to resellerabc.com. So now they can set this demo up so that the outlying elements of the demo player align with what your reseller needs for their specific use case. However, all of the content, any videos, any feature titles, any documents that you utilize to build out the demo experience that your viewers will go through, or that the reseller's viewers will go through even, that is all controlled by you underneath the parent account. And the great thing is, if you were to create this demo and then 2 months later decide you want to update the video that exists inside of it, you can always jump in within your account and update that video. And when you do so, any reseller that uses this particular demo, the video for that demo will automatically update to the most recent video that you add inside of there. So it makes it really easy and simple to enable those resellers and give them access to these demos. So that way they can set them up in a way that allows it to be personalized for their own usage. However, helps make sure that you maintain control of messaging, of any documentation, or anything else that is representing your product. From most of the individuals that we talk with, one of the biggest problems is making sure that the messaging that you give to the reseller is the messaging that makes it to their end opportunities. So inside of the chat, I want you to raise your hand if that's an issue that you've ever ran into with your resellers, where some of the messaging just doesn't make it all the way to that end opportunity. And a lot of times you're having to add resources and jump on calls in order to mitigate that and make sure that you have your own internal sales rep that's helping to drive conversations. Because in all honesty, that internal sales rep has spent years or months at least learning your product and your solutions, where these resellers are simply trying to take them and present them to the opportunities they have with little or maybe even no true training or face-to-face interaction with the product itself, or how it's used, or how to respond to some of the most common questions. So I saw a few hands go up there, which is great. It's a common issue that we absolutely run into with the vast majority of our users that start to implement the Channel Accelerator. So now that I have this demo set up the way that I want, I can simply click on Finish, and as soon as video is added to that demo by the main account, that demo will be ready for usage for this reseller group. Now let's talk a little bit about how resellers can use demos. Just like a sales rep or marketing user inside of your own account, these demos are set up so that your own users can create demo boards, and they can send that unique link to their own prospects. Again, when their unique prospects view these demo boards, they'll view the version that has this reseller organization's customized theming and call to actions and additional demo actions built inside of it. When they change those colors, when they change those actions inside of the demo wizard, that has absolutely no effect on the main or the parent demo, if you will, that's created inside of that parent side of the account. The only thing it changes is the demo for this particular reseller group. So the great thing is each individual reseller gets to go in and personalize their demos based on their own branding, their own needs for call to actions, and however they want to be able to set that up to get the most out of these demo assets. But just like within your own account for your sales users, they can jump in here and they can create demo boards with any of the demos that you've given them access to. And there's no limitation or anything like that to what or how many demos that you can give them. The only limitation that you'll see for resellers is that we limit the ability for them to have any control over content used inside of a demo, which is why they can't create demos, as well as why they simply can't adjust or change any of the content associated with the demos that you give them access to. So now as a reseller, or sorry, now as a parent account to the reseller, one of the really important things to understand is what you can learn from sharing these demo assets and enabling your channel with these type of demos. So let's say you've gone through the process of building out your reseller groups. You have added the users and you've assigned them the specific demos that you want them to have access to. And then from there, they start sending out demo boards, they start creating public links, and they start using it for lead generation. Once this data starts coming in, that's where you can use the Channel Accelerator to understand exactly how well your resellers are performing. So within this sample account, I've set up a few resellers and had them go through some activity so we can see exactly what you'll start to see as you get this process set up. So now we can see all of the resellers that are set up individually. I can see my meta reseller that we set up. I can see distributor ABC, and I can see the different resellers underneath them. Now, if I'm an admin and I come into the Channel Accelerator, I'll be able to see all of the resellers within this list that exist in my account. If I am a group owner, it also gives me access to this section here, but in a limited format, where if I'm only the group owner, let's say of distributor ABC, when I log in to this My Resellers page, I would only be able to see distributor ABC and any of its subgroups. So I wouldn't actually see meta reseller. That way, if you're limiting your PAMs and making sure that they're just focusing on the resellers that they are technically over, or maybe you have several product lines and this reseller is only selling one of them, and you have that specific partner account manager or that reseller group manager that's in charge of driving their activities and their success. When they log in and when they navigate to this My Resellers, it's going to focus them just on the resellers or just on the ones that they're set up as a reseller group owner. Now, if needed, you can actually be set up as a reseller group owner on multiple groups. So if you have, let's say, 3 or 4 different groups that aren't necessarily associated, but they're simply just different resellers that you work with for that product line or for that area or whatever that setup may be, then you can set up that user as a reseller group manager within multiple reseller groups to make sure that he has access to all of those users and access to all of the analytics and demolytics that he'll want to be able to see to understand how well each of them are performing. So obviously as an admin, I'm going to see all the different reseller groups here. And this table is going to give me some high level information about what's been set up for this reseller and some quick information about all-time activity for them as well. So I can see in here each of the different reseller groups, and then I can see how many group users they have. I can see that distributor ABC has 5 users. And if I hover over, I can actually see the names of the users inside of them. So that way, maybe if I work with Reseller Co. a lot, I can see that, oh, it looks like Brianna's in here and I work with her a ton. She's maybe the group owner on the reseller side and my main point of contact over at Reseller Co. And then I can see how many demos have been assigned to them. And if I hover over, I can actually see the specific demos that have been assigned to them so that I can quickly and easily see, well, oh, it looks like Reseller Co. doesn't have any demos assigned to them. So I either need to work with those that own those demos in my organization to make sure that we can give access to my reseller so that I can enable them. Or if I have access, I can then jump into my own managed demos and I can share those demos with Reseller Co. to make sure that I know that they can be enabled. Because right now, if they log in, they simply don't have any demos that they can utilize, whether that's to create demo boards, to send opportunities, or to get the public link in order to start using it as a lead generation tool. Then underneath that, I can see the total subgroups. So this is where I can see that distributor ABC has those 3 subgroups, but they're the only one with subgroups. And the resellers underneath distributor ABC, they don't have any child group or subgroup underneath them either. And as we talked about, meta reseller is just that direct reseller relationship where they don't have anyone above them or under them. They just work directly with you, with your organization, to be able to resell your solution. Now I can see some overall high-level all-time stats for each of the reseller groups. And this is a great way for you to be able to understand which reseller groups have been more active and which ones maybe I need to dive into in order to help drive their usage. Or maybe they're the distributor, so we don't expect them to necessarily have a lot of activity, but we would hope that their subgroups start to have more and more activity. In this one, I can see that Reseller Co. of course has no activity because they have no demos to really do anything with. So it allows me to quickly and easily see any red flags that I need to make sure I can resolve and understand where I can help drive some of these resellers to make sure that they can get the most out of the demos. Now, underneath this, I see reseller demolytics. And just like you have inside of your internal account demolytics, you can see there's a summary, a sales, and a marketing demolytics. And this is where I can jump in and see a lot of stats about my different reseller groups. And again, what's nice is let's jump into the reseller sales demolytics as an example. By default, it's going to show all reseller groups because I'm an admin and I have access to that. If I'm just a reseller group owner of one group, then it's going to limit me to just the groups I have access to. But as an admin, I can now see all groups. And just like you can see within the sales demolytics, if you set up your group hierarchy, you can start to use the sales demolytics to really understand and be able to manage your teams and your users to know who's being effective, who's actually using the solution, and who's using it well to learn from them. So here I can see high-level totals of all of my resellers and how many demo boards they've created and how many views, how many different recipients they've sent these demo boards out to, and how many of those recipients even have a view. So as I'm working with these resellers, I can start to reference these different demo boards that have been created to understand what progress they've made, if they need any additional help or anything like that to really be able to drive the experience. Underneath that, it's going to break it down by group. So previously, we saw just some all-time stats for views and public link views and things like that. Now I can actually see the view based on the timeline that I set above. By default, it's just going to always show the last 30 days. But now I can see all of my reseller groups, and I can see which ones really are most active. And it looks like Reseller ABC has sent the most demos, but they also have a lower demo board view rate. Now, based on their use case, maybe this is still a good view rate, but it helps to make things stand out by being able to compare your different reseller group performance across each of the different groups. I can see how many different stakeholders have been discovered by the demo boards they've created and how many views and total view time and all of that really powerful stuff to really understand what's going on. Now, maybe I want to dive into a specific group and I want to understand their performance, who they're working with, how their users are doing. I can always jump in here and I can select that group specifically, and then I can filter by that. So let's go ahead and apply this for just reseller ABC. And as now that loads, I can see that same 12 demo boards that were created in that list below, along with those 3 views. I can see that same information in that group view for the last 30 days. But now I can look at the reseller ABC users to try to figure out who's really active and who's not. Well, it looks like Benjamin is the leader of the demo board creators. So he's created a lot of demo boards, which is great, but he doesn't have any demo board views. So now that I've been able to dig in that next level down with this reseller, as I'm working with them as that partner account manager or as an admin, I can talk with them about how Benjamin's doing. Is he just getting started and has sent out a bunch of demo boards? Does he need to follow up with those opportunities to help make sure they dive in there and start to review the demo board? Where Bridget, it looks like she's only sent 3, but she's had 2 of those already viewed already, which is great. That means she's queuing up that demo board really well when she's sending it over. Those prospects are expecting to see it and they're jumping right in and they're interacting with it as soon as they go in there and take a look at it. Where now I can see Bennett hasn't done anything yet. So maybe that's a point of concern as I'm talking with the group owner or whoever's in charge on the reseller side. I can talk about Bennett and we can start to game plan. Maybe he's a new rep and he hasn't been assigned any type of book of business yet, or I can really understand how to drive him to make sure that he's starting to use this asset and use those demos effectively. Now I can also see the different customers that they're working with. So I can start to see, okay, it looks like Looper Rate and Synergize 87 are having some good engagement. I can filter this table by engagement so I can really see those organizations or those customers they're working with that are starting to dig in and really watch that demo. So again, on those calls, it's giving me so much more insight than what I'm used to not only just ask, hey, how are things going with somewhat of a blindfold? And I can really understand how they're utilizing the assets that I've given them, the different opportunities that they're working with, and how their team is performing to really understand how they're taking advantage of them. And then all the way down at the bottom, you can even see the demos that have been used to create those demo boards. So I can see that it looks like this advanced demo is the main one that this team's using. So maybe I can see if there's other demos that I think would be important for them to start to use. Maybe I have a testimonials demo or maybe some sort of security and privacy demo that would be really good for them to start to use and send out to their opportunities as well. This gives me a chance now to not only see who they're working with, who's doing a good job in using the assets, but what of the assets that I've provided them are they really seeing as valuable? Maybe there's some demos that aren't being used at all, and I can talk with them about maybe why not. Maybe the content seems off or there's something that they're not sure about, and I can help straighten that out and really make sure that they're taking advantage of that. So there's a ton of really powerful insights that you can gain from enabling your channel partners with your consensus demos. Again, the bulk of the work is done when you create these demos for your own internal reps. And now you can turn around and make sure that those assets that you've spent time on to develop and enhance and make sure that they work really well with your viewers and that your sales reps are happy with using them and the marketing team has approved them to make sure that they're really good for creating those leads. You can turn that around and enable your channel partners to be able to perform all those same actions, customize the look and feel so they feel comfortable using those assets themselves on their own websites or sending it out to their prospects, all still while maintaining control over the messaging so that you can make sure that messaging from creation to that end viewer that's watching it is in line with how you want your product, your services represented. And you can make sure that those viewers are getting the real scoop behind how your solution is going to help benefit them. So hopefully that was a really good insight into how you can enable those channel partners. We have about 10 or so minutes left. And at this point, I want to open it up to some Q&A, and I'm going to have Taylor jump back in to run that Q&A with us to go through some different questions and be able to go from there.
Thanks, Brian. It was great to hear more about this, like some really exciting things there on the Channel Accelerator. One of the first questions that we had was, can a reseller create their own demo?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We covered a little bit during this presentation, but really the goal of the Channel Accelerator is to allow you to control the messaging for them. The other aspect is we want to make sure that they're not using this solution in order to promote any alternative solutions. So right now, resellers are limited to not being able to create any of their own content. If you have a reseller that's maybe interested in having a demo that they can use specifically, you as the parent user inside of that account, you can always create a demo for them and then assign it to their group so that they have access to it. So if you have resellers that maybe have content that they want to use in this format and you think it would be a really good way to enable them, then you absolutely can have them send those files, build the demo out for them, and assign it to them. Great question.
Perfect. The next one was, is there any limit to how many demos you can assign to a reseller?
Yeah, that's another good question. So there's no limit to the number of demos that you assign to a reseller. We do always want to make sure that you're not overwhelming them. Same with any of your internal users. If they have about 30 or so demos to choose from, sometimes that can get tricky for them to really understand what demo is going to make the most sense to send and to really use. So as you're giving access to these demos to your reseller groups and even your internal groups and internal users, make sure you keep in mind that while there's no limit to the number, you want to make sure that you're only giving them access to demos that are really going to give them the best opportunity for them to make progress with their opportunities with those different recipients that they're sending it to. So if you have too many demos, while yes, you can assign all those demos to them, you do want to make sure that you're not overwhelming them with sheer amounts of demos. And so you keep it fairly simple for them to select which demo is going to make the most sense for them to use.
Right. Okay. Another one, can resellers use Consensus Snap to send links and
Yeah,
CME
that's a
links?
good question. So resellers will have the ability to use Consensus Snap. The one thing that they won't be able to do is be able to create what we call a Snap demo. And that's done inside a Consensus Snap when you click on New. We give you the ability within our Chrome extension or within Edge, with the extension used in Edge, to record a quick video demo that you can then send out to your prospect. We limit or we restrict this access from any of your reseller users, which is actually the same thing we do if you have any sales users that don't have the ability to create any type of single video demo. Then those users would have the same experience as your resellers. They would come into Consensus Snap and they'd be able to select any of the demos that you've given them access to be able to create a quick demo board with. They simply wouldn't see this new section here, that new tab, to be able to create that quick Snap demo. But a really good question. They could still use this integration to be able to send out demos quickly, as well as other integrations like Outlook, where they would simply just log into Outlook, into that integration plugin, and then be able to send demos straight from Outlook. Really good question.
Cool. I guess kind of along these lines, while you have it up, can resellers send all demo types where you have single, standard, advanced?
Yeah, that's another good question. So you can see within Consensus Snap, we highlight the most recent ones. That way, if there's 5 or 10 demos that someone's sending over and over again, it'll allow them to quickly and easily select from that. But we also give you a chance to view all your demos or just single, standard, or advanced demos. For resellers, they have full access to all of these types of demos. A few years ago, we had an older beta version of a channel accelerator that limited them from only being able to use single and standard. They didn't have access to advanced. But with this latest model that we have, or the latest version, they have full access to all demo types, including advanced demos. So if you give them access to an advanced demo to their group, they'll be able to customize that advanced demo, as well as any standard or single video demos that you send to them, and be able to use those to create demo boards inside of the application or within Snap or any other integration they use.
Um, Another question, resellers, can they use the dynamic sender contact information, that new feature, that when they're
Yeah,
sending a link to a
absolutely.
video?
Yeah, so as users create their demo boards, and that's a really good point. So we had a new feature just released a week or so ago, where as you create a demo board, you have the opportunity to be able to use your own contact information instead of the contact information in the demo wizard, which is more of kind of a general or generic contact information. And reseller users can take advantage of that same feature. They simply want to make sure that they fill out their profile so that as they are using their own contact information here, that it has something to populate. So of course, by default, we at least require your name and email address. But for any resellers, just like any of your internal users, we highly recommend they jump into their profile to add an image, a first name, last name. If you have a phone number, we provide you an opportunity to add a calendar link, as well as a title if you want in there, as well as several social network connections. So make sure that your resellers take advantage of this just like your internal users. So as they're creating those demo boards to send out, absolutely, they'll take advantage of that user contact information feature, just like your internal users will as well.
Well, and this is a little more on the managerial side, but can I have the same reseller manager assigned to all my reseller groups, or does it need to be, like, can I be the owner of multiple reseller groups?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, and let me jump just into the settings where that would be done. And that's going to be done right inside of the groups. And for any reseller group that you have here, let's say this meta reseller, as I edit them, again, for those that maybe came in late, the reseller group manager is an internal user inside of your account that can be assigned as a reseller group manager that kind of gives them a mini admin permission level where they can adjust some of the user information for those group members. They can also support login as them for this group and any subgroups of this reseller. And for that internal user, you can be a reseller group manager for as many reseller groups as you need. So I'm trying to remember who we had in the other one because I'd select them to just show that it could be the same. But anyone that's an internal user, you can select. I believe it was Chuck Berry that we selected in the other reseller group. Hopefully someone remembers and can verify that. But Chuck can be set as a reseller group manager for as many reseller groups as he needs. That way, if he happens to control that relationship with the reseller for, let's say, 5 or 6 different resellers, then he can be that reseller group manager in multiple places. Really good question.
Well, it looks like we've made it through the questions that we've had so far. If anyone has any further questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or the QA. Brian, any last things you wanted to leave us with?
I think the final thing to remember is that the main problem we're trying to solve with consensus aligns both with your internal users as what most people find with their channel partners is internally it can be tricky to make sure that your messaging makes it to that end opportunity in a way that's going to give your product and solution the best light possible. In the channel side of the house, it can be even more difficult because you're that much more removed from those organizations because they're not under your roof. So you can't maybe control them or get on as many training calls with them as maybe you'd like to. And a lot of times those reseller organizations have multiple solutions they're trying to sell. So it can be difficult to even expect them to know yours as well as your internal sales reps know them. This type of demo automation enablement for your channels goes an incredibly long way in helping make sure that that messaging is intact and exactly what you want it to be, as well as giving you some phenomenal insights that can be incredibly difficult to understand as you're working with channel partners. And I've worked with channel partners in the past within several organizations, and this is probably one of the best ways I've actually ever seen to be able to connect with, interact with, and understand my channel partners.
Great. Yeah, there's a lot of potential there, and it seems to be an area where we can help a lot of people support them. Really great. Awesome to hear all these new features and everything going on in the channel accelerator. So thanks so much, Brian. And do you have the outro slide? Will you let us know what the next sessions are going to be?
Yeah, let me jump right into that. Yeah, so just to make sure everyone knows what is coming up next at 2 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Track 1, we have expansion and renewal demos, the same old Harbor Town or charting new courses with Peter Cohen, who's a phenomenal presenter. And track 2, which is get a seat at the table by starting a buyer enablement division with Todd Jansen, who is another incredible presenter. So flip a coin on this one, but either way, make sure you go back and watch the video of the other if you don't catch it, because both of these presenters are truly top notch.
Great. We will start the access to those 10 minutes before the hour. And so feel free to take a few minutes of a break and jump into one of those next.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thanks.